Hey everybody, Ishmael Kolya, Ish your realtor, associate broker with eXp Realty, and the team leader for the team of experts. Let's talk about negotiations. You are in the market selling your house and you want to know what the negotiations are going to look like. How do we win at the negotiating table? And that's really key because negotiations is where deals are made or lost. And this is where we shine. First of all, we'll help you compare your offers based on more than just the price. It's not always just the price that we want to be looking at, but we also want to look at the entire offer, all of the terms of the offer. For example, if your house is in the market for $750 and you have two offers that are $750, are they both the same? Should you just pick a random one from a hat out of the two? What about if you have two offers and one offer is for $750 and the other offer is for $760? In that case, would you say, well, let's go ahead and pick the $760? That's a no-brainer. The answer is no. We don't simply look at the price that is being offered by the buyer, but rather we look at the entire offer, the terms and conditions of that offer. What happens if I told you that first offer is $750 and they're putting 50% cash? They don't have another house to sell. That means they're ready to go. And the other offer, which is for $760, they're only putting 3.5% down, the very minimum down. And even at that level, they have a co-op to sell. Well, I will tell you that the first offer, even though it's $10,000 less, it is so much more attractive considering they're putting 50% down. And why does that matter? Because the more money that a buyer puts down, the higher chances of them getting their mortgage approval. And also that buyer doesn't have another property to sell. So that means we're not conditioned or we're not waiting for something else to happen for that buyer to be able to buy your property. Whereas the second buyer, even though they're offering you $10,000 more, they're putting very little money down. That means they have such a high chance of a mortgage denial, not to mention that they have a co-op to sell. First of all, a property to sell is one more hurdle in the way of you getting your property sold. Secondly, it's a co-op. That means that co-op seller, that co-op buyer are going to have to deal with a board approval. And that can certainly derail your sale. So again, this is a simple example to show you that two offers are not necessarily the same, or an offer with more money is not necessarily the more attractive offer. That's why whenever we receive offers, you and I would sit down and go through not only the dollar amount, but the various terms of the offer and help you determine what is the best course of action for you and your family and help you choose the best offer. Secondly, in negotiations, not only are we talking about the price, we're also talking about the down payment, but we're also talking about the timeline. What is your timeline of selling the house? How soon would you like to sell the house? Or do you need some more time in the house? Perhaps you need to finish out the school year for yourself, if you're a teacher perhaps, or for your kids if they're in school, and so forth. What does your timeline look like? Or are you in a rush to sell and move on to the next chapter of your life? Do you have a job offer waiting out of state and you need to move soon? So your timeline is important. And of course, just like your timeline, the buyers have their own timeline too. They may have a lease that's expiring soon and they want to buy soon. They may want to close soon, and so forth. So timeline is another important aspect of a negotiation. And also we're going to vet your buyer's financial strength. Just because two buyers have made offers, both perhaps at $750, doesn't make both buyers equal. Perhaps one buyer has a stronger financial profile versus another. And it matters which offer you accept, because if you happen to accept the wrong offer, we could spend over a month in contract with that buyer only for that buyer to be denied mortgage, and we would come back to square one of open houses and looking for a buyer, negotiating offers, and going into contract all over again. And of course, keep in mind your timeline. You may have already moved on out of state to that new job. Now you've got an empty house here, and of course an empty house can be a huge risk and a liability, and so forth. So that's, again, a simple example. There may be other situations. So we don't want to have our deal die or fall apart and then have to come back to square one in terms of having to look for a new buyer. So picking the right buyer is important, and picking the right buyer means we have to vet every buyer's financial strength. How do we do that? We look at the paperwork that they've provided, the pre-approval that they've provided. Is it a pre-approval? Is it a pre-qualification? Check one of my prior videos to see what the difference between a pre-approval and a pre-qualification is. Also, what about their proof of fund? Have they submitted us proof of funds to show that their funds are ready? Are their down payment and closing cost money ready in the bank? Or perhaps do they need to sell another property? Do they need to sell a piece of land? Do they need to sell some stock in order to liquidate these funds and be ready? And that's going to make a difference in terms of your ability to sell your property on time. So buyer financial strength is important. In buyer financial strength, we also talk about debt to income ratio, DTI. This requires me, your listing agent, to get on the phone call with their lender and discuss their DTI, discuss their credit score, and discuss their income and employment and down payment, their liabilities, their assets. Just because they have a piece of paper in their hand, which may be a pre-approval or pre-qualification, doesn't mean that their lender has done all of the due diligence in order to issue this piece of paper. There are some lenders who simply print out a piece of paper and hand it over to their buyers, and then they deal with the outcome later on. Later on meaning once you have signed a contract with that buyer, then the lender would really do their due diligence, and then they may determine, oh, this buyer is actually not qualified, and therefore this buyer would be denied their mortgage. We don't want to find out later on. We don't want to deal with a lender who has simply issued a pre-approval based on some verbal communication. Rather, we want to make sure that this lender is aware of what they're doing. They know how to do their job, and that this pre-approval has some substance and some value to it. Because the last thing we want to do is we want to select the wrong buyer, go into contract only for all of that to fall apart and for us to start back at square one. We don't want to start at square one, and therefore it's really important to make sure that we vet the buyer's financial strength. And then, of course, we want to be able to counter the offer. Just because we have an offer at 750 and you're asking for 750 doesn't mean we have to take that offer at 750. We may be able to counter for a little bit more. We may be able to get you more favorable terms, not only just in terms of the dollar amount on the purchase price, but also on the down payment, also on the timeline that suits your needs, etc. So it's not about just getting an offer, it's about getting the right offer. Again, getting an offer is not that difficult. Getting the right offer and determining when you have a right offer or not in your hand is crucial. And that's why you need an expert negotiator and an experienced agent to vet through and sift through all of the noise and pick the right buyer that's going to take us to the closing and get us closed in as short of time as possible. And in the first shot, we want to get it done in the first shot, the first attempt, so that way you're not spending a lot of time in the market with a vacant house or empty house or two mortgages. All right, reach out to me, 914-540-8849, and I'll be happy to speak to you about the various negotiation skills that I'll be bringing to the table and help you win on your negotiations. My team and I are ready to help you. 914-540-8849. Ishmael Kolia is your realtor, associate broker with eXp Realty, and the team leader for the team of experts. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to speaking with you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.